Now, the High Court has ruled that former Health Secretary Matt Hancock broke equality rules when he appointed Tory peer Dido Harding to a senior role in the government's response to the pandemic, which of course works out really well for everyone.
Yes, the Runnymede Trust think tank and legal campaign group The Good Law Project successfully argued that Harding's appointment had been conducted without open competition because those with relevant personal or political connection to the government were favoured.
Yes, so what does this mean for the Tory government, still trying to recover from lobbying, corruption allegations and, of course, COVID rule-breaking accusations as well? Well, Stephen Carlton-Woods is a political commentator and a radio presenter as well, and he joins us now. Thank you very much. I mean, look, is this actually a shock?
Well, can we just go over this? Because it wasn't quite true what you said there, because the judges actually dismissed the claims by the Good Law Project in its entirety. And there's certain points on this as well, because Lord Justice Singh and Mr Justice Swift concluded that Hancock had not complied with the public sector equality duty in relation to the appointments. But there's more to it than that. And it's something that I'm very surprised of with the mainstream media not actually looking at points of law within the whole thing. And they carry on doing these reports. And this actually came from The Guardian yesterday afternoon. So what people seem to think miss out on, especially in the news, is emergency powers that the government are entitled to bring out and about in times of emergency. So we'll just go back to the terms of emergency powers usually refer to a government's powers responding rapidly to a public emergency. So we've seen a few different things there over the pandemic period, which means that the government don't have to do ordinary rules, and it actually highlights in certain cases when they introduced or they used the emergency powers from the Public Health, the Control of Disease Act 1984, which allows them there to actually make appointments without going through the usual processes. And also using certain acts that can introduce new acts without going through Parliament.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I understand all of that, of course, and in a time of chaos, there is a need for fast, swift action, of course, and sometimes you don't always have the time to go through due process. But 3 in 10 COVID prosecutions were wrongly charged, it has been revealed. Those were laws, of course, introduced by the government. And then now you add on top of that, of course, this situation, which is that Dido Harding. I mean, actually, I'm less bothered about the fact that he appointed her in what could be conceived as a bit of a, well, I was going to say jobs to the boys, I suppose jobs to the girls, isn't it, in her case? But it's the fact that she was rubbish, wasn't she?
Well, do you know, this appointment was an emergency. It was an interim appointment. It wasn't for the final person to do the job. I know that the Guardian newspaper are arguing that she wasn't really qualified to be doing the job, and that may be a founded argument.
No, but, of course it's a founded argument. Test and Trace didn't really work, did it? And she was in charge of that.
Well, there was lots of... They didn't know what they were doing at first, did they? No one knew what was going on. Eyes were going across Europe, looking to see what the neighbours were doing. And at the end of the day, we've come out on top. We've got the best vaccination programme in the world, really. And we're now coming out of all these lockdown measures. So I think it's a great advance for the government. But there was teething problems in the early days. No one knew what was going on. We didn't have any suggestions from the opposition at the time, besides that constant criticism, whatever the government did, whichever way they turned, it was wrong. And that wasn't any help in trying to deal with something that we didn't know what was going to happen.
I agree with you on that. And I think it's really interesting, isn't it? I'd like your view on this, which is that at the end of the day, we are, touch wood, out of this now, right? We've got a cracking vaccine rollout scheme. We are, I mean, goodness me. I mean, I opened up on Justin Trudeau and Canada at the start. Look at Australia, look at New Zealand, look at much of mainland Europe, actually, frankly. And, and there has to be a lot of credit given to that, right? There has to be a lot of credit given to that. And that seems to be outweighed, doesn't it, by various other things, some of them cheese-related. Now, I'm quite keen to get your view. Yeah, go on.
Well, you've got parts of the media that just love to pick up on all the little negative things.
Exactly. That's what I was going to ask. Do you feel as though that our media is actually, I suppose, wrong really in this country, and they're so obsessed with getting a resignation? Do you think they want chaos?
Pardon? Sorry, say again.
Do you think they want chaos? Do you think they want resignation? They want it all?
Absolutely, yes. All from day one of when this coronavirus came out and broke in the news, the scare stories started then with the mainstream media, and they've gone on and on and on. And people don't know whether they're coming or going because a lot of people rely on information. When they turn on the news at the BBC, for instance, or Sky, they rely on that information. And when they keep dripping in bits of misinformation or a narrative that they're putting out, it doesn't help everyone at all. And it actually has a massive impact on people's lives because they think the worst of all this. And then we look at all the experts that led the government at the time. They worked on the modelling of worst case scenario from day one right till now. And it's only since Christmas that the government has actually thought, hang on a minute, we already had data about this latest variant, which was quite mild. We had the data from South Africa, although our experts were telling us, oh, no, this is terrible, absolutely terrible. So now they've actually started to look at their own facts and figures and brought common sense into the whole thing.
I again agree with you on that, and I think that the so-called experts had absolutely no regard whatsoever for the fear and the terror and the mental damage that was being done to people. Those daily press conferences were, at times, terrifying, and we were not informed that these were a worst-case scenario. And the impact that had on a lot of people, especially the elderly, especially the elderly, I think was unforgivable.
Yeah, they always did at the outset say these were worst-case scenarios, but the press looked to just harp onto this is worst-case scenario, but this is what's happening. And then people were really confused about it. Sky News, every day the rates go up, they'll report it. But if the rate doesn't go up, they don't report it that day. This is the sort of thing that the public have to put up with.
Yes, well, Stephen Carlton-Woods, thanks for joining us to discuss that, political commentator and radio presenter.
Cheers.